Today, I am honored to introduce you to a personal hero of mine, Yasmine Mohammed. Born into a strict Muslim family in Canada, Yasmine endured literal torture throughout her childhood and at age 19 was forced into an arranged marriage with a top Al-Qaeda operative tied to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing plot. She was eventually able to escape and has since rose as one of the world's most fearless voices for women's rights, freedom of expression, and the impact of religious extremism. She's the founder of Free Hearts, Free Minds, co-director of the Clarity Coalition, best-selling author of the incredible book Unveiled, and host of the Yasmine Mohammed podcast, where she unapologetically fights to expose the truth. Yasmine doesn't just offer invaluable insight, she ignites change in a world that is utterly confused and desperately needs help. Yasmine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. It is an absolute blessing. And as I've said numerous times already, you are a hero of mine. I mean it in every sense of the word. And I'm incredibly blessed to have you here. So thank you.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
So just to start, for those who don't know you, can you take us back to the beginning, your childhood, what life was like, just so people can get a better understanding of where you're coming from?
Okay.
And there's no rush. Just go through all of it.
Okay, good. Because it's hard to say it all concisely. I'm actually going to take it before my childhood. And I'm going to take it back to my parents' meeting in university.
Okay.
So my dad is from Gaza. He was living in Gaza when it was under the Egyptian Authority.
Okay.
So he was allowed to go to university for free in Cairo. And that's where he went, and that's where he met my mom. So the two of them are like educated, secular. They're Muslim, but neither of them are religious. You know, they have, like, my mom looks like a Bond girl in her wedding, you know.
Like
they've got
arms
belly
exposed.
dancers. Oh, yeah. Teeny tiny little dress. Like, it's a wedding dress, but she's wearing like the little 60s, you know, those little tiny dresses that they used to wear. And they got married. They moved to San Francisco. So they're living in San Francisco. It's now the peace, love, and hippie era. It's like late 60s. And my dad loves it. Okay. He thinks this is great. And my mom, even though she's open-minded and everything, it's still a lot for coming from a conservative country.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would even be a lot for most of Americans in those days, right? What was going on in San Francisco. So yeah, but my dad loved it and my mom hated it. And then they moved to Vancouver, and that's where I was born. And that's also where their marriage fell apart.
Okay.
So Vancouver, Canada. And at that time, my mom is now in Vancouver, Canada. She's got 3 kids. My dad's moved over to the other side of Canada, Montreal, the French-speaking side. Eventually, he remarries, gets 3 new kids, moves on with his life. And my mom somehow gets connected. So now we're talking like early 80s, early to mid 80s. She finds out about this person named Sayyid Qutb, who is a Muslim Brotherhood writer who came to America. For whatever reason, you know, women weren't dancing with him. Women weren't responding to his, you know, whatever, asking them out. So he felt rejected. And he started writing about how America was full of, you know, heathens and infidels, and it's a debaucherous country. And the only thing that can fix it is Islam. Islam huwa al-hal. Islam is the answer. So it's part of the whole Muslim Brotherhood ideology, which is a anti-West, pro-Islam, like spaghetti.
That inspired a lot of Osama bin Laden. Am I correct?
100%.
Okay.
All of So my mom picked up on this train when it was just getting started, right?
And he was in New York, Sayyid Qutb?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so my mom really, really loved the anti-American stuff because she blamed America for ruining her marriage, ruining her life. She really connected with all of the a bunch of heathens and infidels and, you know, horrible people. She's like, yeah, that's true. And then the pro-Muslim, pro-Islam stuff just kind of was like on for the ride. You know, she just kind of like joined in with that too. She's like, hey, yeah, that's the answer. So this is me just sort of like psychoanalyzing her in, you know, in just with using what I think might have happened, what I think was going on with her. Because she went from being a she was smart, educated, beautiful, had everything going for her. She came from a very, upper class family in Egypt. She had all the privilege. And she decides to join this Islamist movement, this political Islam movement, with this man that she ended up marrying, a man who took her on as his second wife. He already had a first wife. He already had 3 kids. His first wife was a convert to Islam. He's also Egyptian. So she marries him when I was about 5 or 6 years old. She goes from being this like secular, open-minded woman to putting on hijab, to forcing us into memorizing Quran, praying 5 times a day. This man she married was like the law. He would come in and like beat us if we didn't memorize or if we missed a prayer. He came into our house and was breaking my mom's records. She still loved listening to country music. We had Dolly Parton, records playing, or Hank Williams or Kenny Rogers.
The Bill Cosby.
Yes, we did. We had, I mean, he's horrible now, but at the time, we loved listening to the Bill Cosby records. Yeah. And he came in and he broke all of these and handed the shards to us and said, like, break these things because these are from the devil. Music is from the devil. And my mom just stood there as this guy was breaking her stuff. So it was essentially teaching us he's the new law in town, right? Like, she doesn't matter anymore. What he says goes. And that was my childhood. And I hated everything about it. I hated the fact that suddenly everything was haram. Everything was forbidden. I couldn't go swimming anymore. I couldn't ride my bike. I couldn't have birthdays. I couldn't have non-Muslim friends. I couldn't play Barbies with my best friends, Chelsea and Lindsay, who lived down the hall. Like, that's what we did every day after school. And suddenly everything was haram, 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 haram. And as much as I hated it, what are you going to do? I'm a child. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't fight back against this. And it just got worse and worse. Eventually, we got put in Islamic schools. We got put in hijab. It just got more and more and more. My mom got more and more religious. She started going to Al-Azhar University, which is a very fundamentalist university in Egypt. She got her master's in Islamic studies and Sharia. She's the head of the Islamic studies department at the Islamic school that I'm attending, that we're all attending. So I have to, we have to get the best grades because we don't want to dishonor her. So that's our whole childhood. And eventually what happened was the money was coming in from Saudi Arabia and it was transforming our community. So initially the Imam was a man from India and he was all like, yeah, love thy neighbor and all that kind of stuff. And then the Imam came in from Egypt with his wife in full-on niqab. We had never seen that before. Like, we're running around as kids going, oh my God, there's a ninja. Like, what's going on? Right?
Like fully covered.
Fully covered.
Could you see her eyes or no?
Just a slit for her eyes. Okay. And we'd never seen this before. Now this is so common. Like, I ended up wearing niqab for years, right? Like, it just took over. But when it first started, it was kind of jarring and surprising. Like, suddenly everybody's in darker colors. Suddenly it's just the separation between men and women became a lot more, like, before that at the mosque, they were separated. But if we had like, a park event, like something, no, they weren't. Like, kids and parents were kind of running around all together. Not anymore. Now it's like everything's super segregated. Just became a lot more strict for many different reasons. The khutbah, the sermons on Fridays became a lot more like the infidels, the Jews, the da-da-da, like the kuffar. It was a lot more fire and brimstone.
And this is in Canada.
Yes, this is Vancouver, Canada. I mean, we have the most horrible imams. You got to look up the guy in Victoria, BC. Like, he it's just horrible. We have imams. We don't really have hate speech in Canada. So like the imams go crazy with the things that they say. So this was my life. And when I was about 13 years old, there was a gap between the secondary school hadn't been built yet for the Islamic school, so I was allowed to go to a public school because I was finished elementary. And so for that 1 year, I went to a public school, and my mom found out that I had non-Muslim friends when I was there, because I was told, you go to a public school, you're not allowed to have non-Muslim friends. So I'm like, so I had them secretly, and then she found out. And so she was so upset. She said, you're not going back. You're staying home for grade 9. And I was devastated. And so this one teacher of mine, Mr. Fabro, who was my drama teacher, he felt like, he's like, something's up with you. Are you okay? So I told him everything. And I showed him the bruises, and I told him everything that was going on in the house. I explained to him that, like, I had been hung upside down and beaten, all of the stuff that's been happening in the house, all over, being too Western, or not praying enough, or not memorizing Quran enough, like all around the religion.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you explain why you were hung upside down and beaten? That story in the book stuck out.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it was not that big of a deal why they did it, but in hindsight, I realized, like, okay, yeah, so they really were trying to make their point here. So my name is Yasmine, as you mentioned. It's Yasmine in Arabic. And I had written, so it's spelled Yasmin. And I had just written my name in my notebook, Jasmine. I changed one letter. But because I did that, they were so incensed that I should dare to westernize my name. And they really wanted to, I guess, scare me into not wanting to be westernized. I'm born and raised in Canada. I am Canadian. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. They just wanted me to identify as Egyptian or Arab or whatever. What they would say is, just because you're born in a barn doesn't make you a horse. Just because you're born in Canada doesn't make you Canadian. Well, sorry, I am,
Well, it sort of does.
Yeah. And the fact that I changed the letter of my name from Y to J was such a travesty that was the worst punishment I'd ever gotten throughout my whole childhood, was as a result of that action. So that's just to show you, like, you can't in any way step out of line, even the teeniest, tiniest bit. And so that's when they hung me upside down. In Islam, every Eid, there's like a celebration that they do after Ramadan, and another one that they're both called Eid. There's Eid al-Adha, which is when they slaughter an animal, like, to sacrifice it to God, to Allah. And so they have in the garage, like, this hook that they would hang the Eid lamb or goat or whatever it is that they got. And that's what they hung me on. And they'd hung my brother on that same hook as well.
Oh, did they?
Yep. My brother actually got it more than I did. I only got this happen to me that once. Tie up your ankles, hang you up. And then as you're hanging upside down, he's beating us. And one time when my brother was hanging like that, I went into the garage and I was just, like, lifting him up and, like, trying to give him water. I don't know. I thought I was trying to help him, and it was making it worse because he's, like, crying, and there's mucus, and he's choking, and then I got in trouble
For helping him.
for helping him. Yeah, I was supposed to just, like, leave him there.
You had said in the book that you had passed out after hanging, and then you woke up to your mom saying, "What are we going to do with the body?"
Yeah, well, she was freaking out. She's like, "What have you done? Like, we're going to be in so much trouble now." Like, she's worried and nervous and stressed that they might have killed me, because now what are they going to do? Like, now, it wasn't like my daughter is dead.
Right.
I am upset about that fact. It was like, oh my gosh, what are we supposed to do now with this situation? We have a dead girl here. So that's what I'm hearing as I'm coming back to this world, that I was just like, I want to go back. you know?
So you told your teacher, you showed him all the
Mm-hmm.
markings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he ended up writing the foreword for my book, Mr. Fabro. So we're still in
It's amazing.
connection. I love him. One of the most wonderful men in the whole wide world. Like, I'm so grateful that he entered my life at that point. So he alerts the police alert child services. It ends up becoming this whole investigation, this whole court case. And in the end, the judge is like, meh, it's your culture. That's how your family chooses to discipline you. Oh, well.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's and I was planning on talking about that later, and we can go more into it. I want to hear more about the upbringing, but that's actually insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So after that happened, I was taken out of school. And it was kind of like this constant trying to control me, making sure that I don't get out again because I'm going to go for help from the infidels or something, or like change the first letter of my name or something. Like they're just like so worried that I'm going to be too westernized. They're going to lose me to the infidels, right? And eventually, I get left in Egypt against my will, totally not aware of the fact that I was going to be left in Egypt, but I was left in Egypt for a couple of years, tried to force me off into a marriage with my cousin, was able to get back to Canada. All of this is like, as you know, you read my book, like I'm totally giving you the Coles notes right now.
Yeah.
Make it back to Canada, and they're still like, how do we control this girl? And then that's when they got the Al-Qaeda terrorist. And my mom literally said to me, we found a man who's strong enough to control you. And yeah, so that's when I was head to toe in niqab, imprisoned in the house with him, have to accept that Islamically sanctioned, he's allowed to beat me, he's allowed to rape me, there's nothing I can do about it. And eventually, pretty quickly, had a baby girl. And once I had her, I knew I have to get out of here. Like I can't let her live this same life that I've been living. In fact, it's going to be worse because he's talking about going back to Afghanistan and like living in Peshawar and fighting, continuing to fight with Al-Qaeda, and him and my mom were talking about taking my daughter to Egypt to get FGM done on her, which is
Can you
like
explain
this.
what that is for those who don't know?
So FGM stands for female genital mutilation. It's sometimes the euphemism is female circumcision, but it's essentially cutting off the clitoris of a young girl. So it's, circumcision really is a euphemism. It is mutilation of a perfectly healthy little girl. And it's not something that was done in my family. And my mom's not, it hadn't been done to her, but because it was something that because Islamically, it's supposed to be done to girls. And so she just was like going on along with it with him, like, yeah, let's take my granddaughter and go get her mutilated in Egypt. Like she wasn't even protecting my daughter. And so I thought, well, I have to get out of here. I have to protect her. And both of these people want to mutilate my perfectly healthy, beautiful little girl. I'm not going to let anybody touch her. And so I had to get out. And at this point, I have a high school education, a toddler. No, this is before, social media or anything. I've lost touch with everybody from high school because I'd been in Egypt for 2 years and came back, and like you're writing letters back in these days, right? So, very long story, the whole thing. Finally, eventually, get myself away from him, get myself away from my mom, start going to university. I'm very lucky that I'm in Canada where I can get student loans and I can do this. Start going to university, and 9/11 hits. And there is a BBC guy, complete in his like bomb gear, whatever they're wearing, in like one of those bunkers that bin Laden was just in. They had just blown it up, but bin Laden wasn't in it. And the guy reaches down, picks up a random piece of paper out of all of the papers flying around this room, reads it, and it is information and the address to the company that Islam, the terrorist I was married to. It's all about his information in Richmond, BC. So, of course, journalists look that up. They connect it to me. Like, I'm trying to go to class, and my professors are like, is this you on the front page of the Globe and Mail? You know? So that was like me trying to escape this world, but this world coming after me. But 9/11 was really huge for me too, because it made me finally understand that, you know, I didn't want to be a part of this world anymore. I didn't want to be connected to this community that was jubilant, full of excitement and joy and just morale boosts like you wouldn't believe over the deaths of thousands of innocent people. Like, we're watching people jumping from the buildings, and my mom was like, oh, Allahu Akbar, like just like so happy to see these scenes. And it's really repulsive. It's really hard for you to negotiate, to justify in your brain that this is your community, this is your family. You're one of these people, and you're going to raise your daughter to be one of these people. Right. And so that and the fact that I took a history of religions course in university at the same time. So I'm being bombarded both intellectually and emotionally. And that's when I decided, like, I can't have anything to do with this anymore. And I'm certainly not raising my daughter in this. And so that's how I was able to get myself out.
I want to go back to when you were 12 and you go to the courts. You talk to Mr. Fabro and you show them the marks. You tell them the torture that you're going through in Canada. And they decide to put you back in this house that you're being tortured in. And as you've said, it was because, well, it's cultural differences. I can't wrap my head around it, because as you've said, and as you know, if it were a Canadian child to Canadian parents or to parents who were not from a different culture, immediately would have been taken out. Can you talk about this? Like, does this happen on a regular basis? Why is it happening? Like, what is the justification for this? What's going on?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, it is still happening. The justification is cultural relativism, moral relativism, really. Just very recently in Nova Scotia, we had another part of Canada. There was a 14-year-old girl. Her dad broke her nose from punching her in the face when he realized that she was texting with a boy. And when she tried to get out of that home, her mom argued that her dad just didn't know, that that's just the way her mom was protected. And then they didn't take the girl out of the house. They were like, no, that's fine. It's just a cultural difference. This is very recent.
Holy shit.
Yeah. These kinds of things happen all the time. I mean, there's more atrocious cases. There's cases in Europe of men raping children, and then they say things like, well, we didn't know. That's, this is acceptable in our culture. Yeah. And so the stories are endless. This kind of moral relativism is just a toxic, disgusting. It is such a huge problem, not just in Canada, but all across the world. You know what I mean? Like, you have to look at things as right and wrong, good and bad, abusive or not. It's, regardless of who the perpetrator is. It doesn't matter what his religion is or what his ethnicity is, or why do we care? Why is that important? These are the laws. This is what is acceptable here and what is not acceptable here. Done. End of discussion. But we don't do that. In the UK, They have a huge problem with FGM. And even though it's supposed to be criminalized, they give them a pamphlet to educate them. Hey guys, it's not nice to cut off your daughter's clitoris. Like, they fucking know that already. They don't care. They're going to do it because it's what their religion tells them to do. They don't need a pamphlet. They need to go to prison. And then you're letting other people know you better not do that, because you're going to get in trouble. So they'll stop doing it to their daughters. But what are they going to do after the fact? The girl's already ruined. There's nothing they can do about it. So they're taking them to Somalia or to Egypt or to whatever, getting it done, coming back home. And then when these girls go to the doctor for some other reason, or sometimes complications, because it's not like these things are done,
In a sterile environment.
exactly. Yeah, it's just done by some woman with a razor blade. And so then they come and they see like a regular NHS doctor or something over complications. And then they realize, oh, this happened. Oh, what are we going to do about it? I know. Let's give her parents a pamphlet. So yeah, we don't treat people the same. We don't have one law for all. We treat people differently based on what we believe their level of understanding is. It's the bigotry of low expectations is what it is. If this was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed family that had just cut off their daughter's clitoris, they're not getting a pamphlet.
No.
Right? But they're like, oh, these guys are from Somalia, though. So, like...
One of the quotes that you said in relation to this that stuck out to me, you said, when Islamophobia is weaponized, children are abandoned.
Absolutely.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the example of that, right? When we are trying to speak out against the abuses that we're going through, we get called Islamophobes. Like, you can't speak out against the most basic, like even FGM that we've been talking about. Even that now is considered like, oh, no, that's just like religious cutting or whatever. Like they make these euphemisms and protect these barbaric practices because they think that they're helping. Who are you helping? You're helping the oppressors and you are working against the victims. And so they use these words like Islamophobia, which was essentially created by Islamists to protect their actions, to protect themselves from any kind of criticism of Islam, and it works like a charm. People use this word Islamophobia, and suddenly you can't criticize anymore because you're going to be a bigot, a racist, Islamophobe, right? They throw it in there. Oh, xenophobe. They make it like it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing to criticize child marriage, mutilation of young girls. It's a bad thing to criticize the fact that I was being beaten as a child. It's a bad thing to criticize girls being forced into hijab or being beaten or killed for it. This is I'm the bad person, So they just it absolutely protects the oppressors when people use words like that.
Can you explain the difference for those who don't know between Islam and a radical Islam?
I wish I could make a distinction for you, Jordan, but it is one religion. It is Islam. What's the distinction can be made between the people.
Yes.
Some Muslims are radicalized and some Muslims are not. And by radicalized, I just mean they follow their religion literally. They follow the edicts of their religion literally. Whereas other Muslims will say, well, no, I don't want to follow these parts. And I actually don't want to be an anti-Semite. I actually, don't want to be a homophobe, right? But if you are following your religion to the letter, then you are a radicalized Muslim.
So I in preparation for this, I was doing some research and I was pulling some data, and I got data from a bunch of different places, and I ended up on the Pew Research Center, and they actually had the lowest estimates, which is what I'm gonna go with, to give the greatest benefit of the doubt. But right now, and this is all according to Pew Research, there are about 2 billion Muslims globally, and there are about 3.5 to 4.5 million in the USA. And Pew Research estimates that about 0.01% to 0.05% are radicalized. Now, again, this is the lowest that I could find. What that directly translates to is about 100,000 to 200,000 radicalized violent extremists globally, and about 1,500 to 2,000 in the USA, which I think, number one, that's a lot. And that's the lowest projected number that I could find. We saw what 19 men could do on 9/11, what 19 men could do to kill thousands of people in an instant. So to have 100 to 200,000 globally on the low end, 1,500 to 2,000 just in the USA on the low end is, quite frankly, very scary. Pew Research also says that, and this is important, I think, to note, because I have many Muslim friends who are wonderful people. 86% of United States Muslims vehemently reject violent extremism. They have zero justification for it. We do not support it. 86%, which is amazing. However, that means 14%, and this is all according to Pew Research Center, 14% say suicide bombings are sometimes/often justified. Now, if we look at that in raw numbers, that's 570,000 people in the United States who believe that suicide bombings are sometimes or often justified. My question to you is, how do we solve this problem?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Those are alarming statistics. Although I want to say that I don't think that they are correct. I think that the numbers are actually a lot more than that.
Why do you think that?
Because I was born and raised and lived in these communities. I've lived in Egypt, I've lived in Qatar, I've lived in Canada. I know these communities. I have family all over America. What you say in research versus what you believe are two very different things. I mean, I just want to bring up the example of the research that was done in Gaza too, to see how many are Hamas supporters versus what we see with our own eyes, and the destruction that is caused by, as you mentioned, even a small amount of people, but the numbers are a lot more than that, unfortunately. How do we solve that is a very difficult question. And it's one that's getting harder and harder to answer, because I wrote my book at the end of 2019, so right before the pandemic. And at that time, I was still saying that there was hope, that I could still see that we can turn things around. I was advocating for, before you open your doors wide to let in Syrian refugees, for example, take a look at who these people are. Like, we do things like we look at what is their education level, what is their, financial, how much do they have in the bank and things like that. But we're not looking ideologically. And that is very problematic. Like, you want to bring in refugees? Absolutely bring in refugees. Can you bring in the Yazidis that are being killed?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you bring in gay people that are being killed? Can you bring in women, single moms, bring them in?
Yes.
But instead we're bringing in, Muhammad with 7 children and 2 wives. So it's like we're not paying attention to the right things. We're not asking the right questions. We're inviting the wrong people into our home, and then we're like, hey, what's going on? Look at Angela Merkel. Look at what happened in Germany. Now throughout Europe, right? Opening your doors wide. Refugees welcome, without paying attention to who you're letting in, thinking that you're being so altruistic, so empathetic, so kind, so loving, so smart. You're not. You're none of those things. You're actually being evil to the people who are living in this country already, especially the girls. And they saw that immediately, right? So I don't know what we can do now at this point. Like, things have just gotten worse and worse and worse. And after October 7th, 2023, the evil that was hidden is now
Celebrated openly.
celebrated. Absolutely. Yeah. So whereas before it used to be like, you know, maybe education, maybe this, maybe that. Now I just feel like we really have turned a bad corner. Unfortunately, Jewish people are always the canaries in the coal mine. Canada, I don't know if you've been following. Nobody really follows what's happening in Canada. But it is just humiliating how wrong we are on so many things in Canada. So I'm starting to lose hope, actually. I'm starting to feel like where we, as ex-Muslims, when I'm chatting with my friends, it's like, where do we go? Where is safe for us?
Yeah.
There's nowhere safe for us anymore. We're worried wherever we are. I'm sure the Jewish community feel the same way. Like,
Yes.
where do you go? We want to go to Israel too. Where's our Israel? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, we don't feel safe anywhere. And it's like, if people are privileged enough to not have this as their concern, then they're not going to be concerned. When it starts to affect them,
Yes.
then they're going to wake up. But by then,
It's too late.
it's too late. I mean, look at France as an example, right? Like, they just didn't see the light until they had rivers of blood. Samuel Paty had to be beheaded in the streets of Paris before they started at the Ministry of Education to have like an absolute zero tolerance policy. Before that, it was like, it's okay, it's fine,
We don't
it's
want to
the
be
religion.
racist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And now,
What's going on in Canada right now?
oh man. So, I mean, you heard that Canada has recognized Palestine as a state, which was really telling Hamas, good job, you did it,
Correct.
you succeeded. What you did, look at you now. Look at this trophy that you've won.
I have no issue with a Palestinian state. I want a Palestinian state, and I want freedom for the good and just and innocent Palestinians. The issue is it came on the back of a horrific
Exactly.
slaughter of 1,200 innocent people. They're like, oh, you did that? Cool. Now you have a state. That's the issue of the timing and how it was done.
100% agree with everything you just said. Yeah.
So in addition to that, in Canada, what are some of the struggles you're seeing right now?
Well, anti-Semitism in Canada has increased by like 670%.
Yeah.
Absolutely, astronomical numbers. We have so few synagogues and Jewish schools, and the same ones just keep on getting shot up or burned down over and over again. Jewish businesses constantly being either vandalized or, getting all of this horrible stuff written about them online. It's just unbelievable, the level. People are too afraid to wear their Magen Davids now. It really, it feels exactly like when we studied the Holocaust.
Yeah.
The days leading up to the Holocaust, the absolute normalization and celebration of anti-Semitism. It's like, well, of course you're going to be anti-Semitic because Zionists are, murderers or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, this is the rhetoric that is normalized, and if you don't say that, then you're the bad person.
It's interesting to see the far left and the far right really coming together on that too. Whereas it's actually very interesting because the far right, they just use the word Jew, like Jews. The far left will use the word Zionist in place of Jew, but it's all attacking the same thing. And it's funny because if we look at, the horseshoe theory, that's where they come together. People feel like the far left and the far right run on a spectrum that are the complete opposite sides, but they actually meet, and it typically meets at Jew hatred.
100% agree. And you can add Muslims in there too.
It's,
know?
Last night I was at a meeting with about 25 Jewish men, and my whole life studied. I've loved history. I've always said if I wasn't a personal trainer, I would have been a history professor. I love history and I love learning about this stuff. And when I'm learning about the Holocaust, we have documentation and stories of Jews meeting and having arguments about in the 1930s being like, what do we do? And there were some who were like, just let it happen. It's fine. Like, just do what they say. There's no issues. And then there are others who were like, we have to fight. There's something going on. The others, we have to leave. And they were arguing in this room. And last night I had this very unique moment in this room of about 20 to 25 Jewish men. The whole reason we were there is because we're all scared shitless.
Yeah, you're doing the same thing. You're having that
We're
same
having the
conversation.
exact same conversation. We're all scared shitless about what's going on and trying to come up with a plan. And it was very, I don't even have, surreal to be like, this is what was happening. We were all having meetings and trying to figure out what's the right solution. It's a scary time, and I did want to get your perspective on what you think the solution is, but you think it's. Let me ask you this: instead of the solution, what do you think happens over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think what has to happen over the next 5 to 10 years is that we have to start getting serious about defending Western values. We have to get serious about protecting our freedoms. We haven't been doing that. We've been apologetic about our own freedoms. We've been apologetic about our own values. We've actually been very self-hating about our own values, right? And so that's what needs to change. That it's not going to take 5 to 10 years, though. It's going to take a lot longer than that. There's a lot of damage has been caused. Billions and billions of dollars. You know, Qatar is like the largest foreign funder of our universities here in the States.
By far. It's not even close.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of damage that's been done. There's a lot of propaganda, foundation that's been set. And there's going to be a lot of dismantling that's going to have to happen now. But at the government level, at the law enforcement level, there needs to be an understanding of what's going on. I mean, in the UK, there were men running around with ISIS flags, and it was the Met Police. They were saying, oh, no, that's not an ISIS flag. That's just a flag with the Shahada on it. I mean, it's literally like saying, no, that's not a Nazi flag. It's just a flag with a swastika on it. That's exactly what you just said. Like, they don't even know what they're dealing with. It's embarrassing how we are really lambs to the slaughter. And what they said is, oh no, we conferred with our Muslim police officers and they told us that this is just a flag with the Shahada. So, okay. So the foxes told you that the hen house is secure. Like, we really need to start figuring out what's going on here. We really need to smarten up. And
do you think
until that
happen?
happens, I don't know if it's going to happen. I am afraid that it's going to happen in a very bad way. So if we take the UK as an example, I'm afraid that things are going to have to get so bad that we are going to have the far right reacting. And we've already seen that kind of happen.
Yes.
And it's a pendulum, right? This is what's going. You pull so far to the left, okay, so the right's going to fight back. And I feel like unless we, I don't know if we ever will, but unless we start to be rational in the middle, center right, center left, like start just using our brains when we're making decisions instead of using our tribal allegiances to make decisions, then we're going to be handing it to the far right and saying, okay, it's time for this civil war you've been wanting.
I know you can't predict, but if you had to play Nostradamus and because you're saying like things will get really bad, what does really bad look like practically for people to understand?
Well, let me, not to be an alarmist, which I get accused of all the time.
You're a realist.
I thank you. I
and sometimes
appreciate
reality
that.
is alarming.
Yeah, people read my book and they're like, "Wow, this is crazy." When you read it in 2020, but they're reading it in 2025, they're like, "Oh my God, this is like."
Isn't it crazy how
prophecies.
quickly they can? Yeah.
Yeah. So really, if you take a look at things like, let's take Egypt for example. Gamal Abdel Nasser was standing in Egyptian parliament and he said, the Muslim Brotherhood told me that I need to put a hijab on my daughter, and not only that, I need to put a hijab on every woman in Egypt. And Parliament erupted in laughter. They thought it was hilarious that the Muslim Brotherhood thought that an Egyptian woman, an educated Egyptian woman in university, was going to put a hijab on her head. And now look at Egypt today, right? Look at Iran and look at what happened to them.
Devastating.
Absolutely devastating.
Devastating.
And this is, 40 years, 50 years in both of these examples. So things move pretty quickly. There is a sense over here in the West of, unfortunately, a combination of arrogance and ignorance. Arrogance of like, it can't happen to us. It's not going to happen here.
We're free. We're good. Yeah. Yeah.
And then an ignorance of not knowing what they're dealing with. So why am I hearing the adhan in the streets of New York and all over the United States, right? You should understand what the adhan is, but they have an ignorance. They're like, oh, it's just like church bells. No, it's not. Listen to know what you're talking about, right? It's like when they run around in the streets and they talk about intifada. Nobody knows what intifada means because it's an Arabic word, right? And so they don't know what they're dealing with. It's like when the far right racists are in the streets, in Charlottesville chanting, Jews will not replace us. Sorry, that was in Sydney, Australia, where they said gas the Jews. I'm getting my anti-Semites mixed up. My Jew haters, my genocidal haters mixed up. When they're in the street saying Jews will not replace us, everybody reacts accordingly. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. But then in every major street all over the world on Al-Quds Day, you've got people screaming Khaybar, Khaybar, which is basically a chant about the genocide of a Jewish tribe. They're basically calling for the genocide of Jewish people. Nobody knows what's going on. It's another language. So it's a lot of ignorance about what they're dealing with and an inability to distinguish between a Muslim and an Islamist. Zero ability to distinguish. They see Muslim and Islam. They don't understand the difference.
Yeah.
They don't understand that Muslim is just a person and a person who has a faith that they believe in, whether they pray in the mosque or pray at home or whatever, it's their business.
And they could be wonderful. They could be an
They could be
amazing
wonderful
person.
people. It's, it's just a person. But an Islamist is a person who is a political Muslim who's trying to spread the ideology, using any means necessary, whether it's through media, whether it's through government, whether it's through education, whether it's through jihad, through terrorism, right? So this is what this person is. And when Islamists try to do things like Hijab Day, for example, where they go to campuses and corporations and they try to encourage women to wear hijab for the day and talk to them about how wonderful hijab is, people see that and they think, oh, that's a religious thing. They think that's a Muslim. That's not an average Muslim. An average Muslim isn't going around trying to get you to wear a hijab, which is, a very fundamentalist religious piece of clothing, right? These are Islamists. These are the people, women are thrown in prison over hijab.
They're killed over it.
Women are killed over
Massamini,
hijab.
killed.
Absolutely. Yes. In Canada, a young girl, 16-year-old girl, Aqsa Parvez, was killed by her father and her brother over hijab.
With her own hijab, right?
With
they
her own
strangled
hijab.
her. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, just to make the point very clear. So if you can't, they need to be able to tell the difference. They can tell the difference between a fundamentalist Christian. They say, oh, that's a Christian nationalist. Oh, that's a dangerous person. Whereas this over here is just your average, Protestant or, they can tell.
Yeah.
They can't tell with Muslims. So
And they don't
there's
want to
the
be
ignorance
racist.
right there. And they don't want to be racist.
They don't want to be
Islamophobic. They don't want to be a bigot. So they err on the side of, suicidal empathy. Social suicide. That's the side that they err on. Rather than being called racist, they're letting this happen to their country. Look at the Rotherham gangs. The Rotherham gangs, why did thousands of girls over decades, why were they caught in these rape gangs? Because the rapists were Pakistani. So any journalist that spoke out about it, any politician that spoke out about it, any rape crisis center leader that spoke out about it, they all lost their jobs. They were the ones who were scorned. And the perpetrators, protected.
They're literally doing the opposite of what they say they believe in. They're protecting the perpetrators and hurting the oppressed.
100%.
You've spoken about the hijab. Can you explain the difference between the hijab and the niqab, as well as their role in Islam, as well as your personal experience with them?
Yeah. So hijab just means covering. And I have to make it clear that Islam has specifics about everything. Like it tells you how to cut your nails, okay? It tells you how to drink water, it tells you how to go to the bathroom. Nowhere anywhere in the Quran or a hadith does it explain what a hijab needs to look like. So there's these men running around making all of these
That's
decisions.
interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. And so the mainstream understanding of hijab is that it needs to cover everything except for your face and hands. Some scholars said that. It's not in any, this is not written, like, this isn't doctrine. This isn't hadith. This isn't Quran. But this is the mainstream understanding. It has to cover everything but your face and hands. And then there are other scholars who say, no, even face and hands need to be covered. So I, for example, had to wear black gloves and cover my face completely. I couldn't even have the slit. I just had a thinner piece of cloth over my eye. So complete, like, Dementor, basically. That's what I looked like. And so it really just depends on, you know, how Muslim you want to be, how far you want to take the, you know, how religious you want to be about it, you know? And so, but make no mistake, whether it's hijab or niqab, both of them are misogynist. Both of them are, you know, to a degree, obviously, there's a very big difference between wearing hijab and wearing niqab. But both of them stem from that same place of victim blaming. You need to cover yourself lest these men around you get aroused and end up raping you, and it's because you were showing skin.
Shouldn't have been showing your hair.
You shouldn't have been showing your hair. And so you'll see even little girls being put in hijab, like toddlers. They got a diaper and a hijab on, you know? So I guess the men are telling on themselves, essentially.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, we need this little girl to cover herself up. So that's where it stems from. So the misogyny of it, the victim blaming, the you know, the supporting of rape culture essentially with around the hijab is evil. It's absolutely evil. And when you were giving the statistics of Muslim people in America, there are also statistics showing that the vast majority of Muslim women in America don't wear hijab. When they are living in countries where they are forced to wear hijab, like obviously Iran, you know, Egypt, Pakistan, Somalia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whether it's by their family, their community, their society, because they can just be, you know, they get ostracized. When I was living in Qatar, for example, I had two students that were fighting over something. And one of my students says to me, I'm not wearing hijab, right? I'm not a Muslim at this point, but she doesn't even know to change her language when she's talking to me. She says to me, teacher, you can't believe her. She's a liar. Look, she doesn't even wear hijab. And I was like,
Uh-oh. Wrong thing to say.
am I wearing a hijab? And she's like, oh, no, but not you. It's different. But you know, for us, it's the way, you know, the good girls, the ones who follow, you know, the path of Allah, they wear hijab, and the ones who don't, they don't. I'm like, yeah, I know, because, right? Like, I'm not going to tell her because I'm going to get myself killed.
Right.
But yeah, that's really what you're told from a very young age. If you want to be good, pure, if you want Allah to love you, if you want to go to heaven, right? This is the gentle coercion. The coercion continues to, as we mentioned, being murdered over it. So if the gentle coercion doesn't work, it will continue to heighten until it reaches a point where it forces the girls to comply.
What do you say to the women who wear them because they say they love it?
I mean, I said I loved it too. You know, that's indoctrination. Why does she love it? She loves it because it makes her mom proud. It makes her dad proud. It makes Allah proud because she's going to go to heaven because she's been coerced into it. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, you know what I really want to do? I want to cover myself head to toe in black and get myself some black gloves. Like nobody does that out of free will. And the test is for this girl that loves it, ask her what would happen if she took it off. Because people like to say that it's a choice. Oh, it was my choice to put it on. Well, is it your choice to take it off? Go ahead and take it off then. Go ahead, take it off. Make that choice. And there's your answer.
This reminds me of the story in your book where Tiffer, as your friend, was challenging you to get in the bathroom with, I think it was the right foot first, and you were so scared.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this idea of punishment for the slightest infarctions or mistakes that you might make that go against Allah?
Yeah. So it's called a sirat al-mustaqim, so the long and straight path. And the way that they they represent it is a tightrope. You're walking a tightrope, and below the tightrope are the fires of hell.
It's an anxious way to go through
life.
Oh,
anxious is the word. Absolutely. Yes. Complete, just like cortisol soup. Yeah. Just like complete fight or flight, anxious, walking like this all the time. And what's important too is when you're that stressed and nervous about following these different rules all the time, there's no time to think. There's no time to ever take a step back and use your brain because you have no time. You have to make your brain is so filled with following the exact rules in the exact way, saying the right thing, walking in the bathroom with the right foot, or the correct foot, Like it's just constant noise, constant stress. And if you get it wrong, you're going to hell. Like there's no leeway. There's no room for, doing things a little bit differently. I mean, when my mom threatened to kill me, it wasn't because I'd left Islam. It was because I took off my hijab. I was still identifying as a Muslim in those days. I just didn't want to wear this anymore. It'd been put on me at 9 years old. I hated it since it was put on me. And I'm an adult now and I want to take it off. And for that reason, I'm not her daughter anymore. Shouldn't go to her funeral. I'm just a whore. I'm a this, I'm a that, the other thing. And she was going to have me killed because she needed to make sure that I was killed before I moved on to the next step, which she saw was going to be leaving Islam. And at that time in my life, I was like, what do you mean? Of course I'm not going to leave Islam. But she's like, I need to make sure you're killed before you leave Islam because then I'm going to have an infidel daughter and I'm the one who's going to be punished in eternity for that. So I need to make sure that you're killed before that happens. So it's a very kind of logical decision. Mm-hmm. And there's no talking somebody out of an indoctrinated belief. Mm-hmm. Like there's no empathy, there's no humanity, there's nothing that's going to break through that. I know that. I understood that. And so that's how I knew, oh, yeah, my life is in danger. And that's why I've never had any contact with her since. There was no question she was going to have that done.
Can you explain what Sharia is and how it impacts women and all people living under it?
Mm-hmm. So Sharia means Islamic law, but we use the word law. It doesn't mean like in the legal sense. It's not a court of law. It's just the rules of the religion. So the edicts of the religion. So Islamic edicts would probably be a better way to describe it, but it is used as Islamic law, and I'll explain why. So the law, first of all, Sharia, I'm just going to call it Sharia for now. It is derived from the Quran and the Ahadith. So the Quran is supposedly the literal word of Allah that was sent down through Gabriel to Muhammad and then written down by who knows, because Muhammad was illiterate, so different people were writing it down. And so that's the Quran. And then the ahadith are stories of the Prophet, how he lived his life. And it's stories like this guy said to this guy, said to this guy, said to this guy, like, it's an ancient story of telephone. And then like hundreds of years later, they're writing it down saying, oh, this guy said to this guy, said to this guy, said to this guy that Muhammad said to do this, kill all black dogs or whatever it was. So that's the hadith. So these two books together, I mean, the hadith are a pile of books, not just one, but all of these books together comprise Sharia. There are Sharia scholars, people like the head of ISIS, what was his name again? It completely slips my mind. But he had a PhD in Islamic studies. So he is an Islamic scholar. So those kinds of people, what they do is for countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia that use Sharia in their actual laws, is they take Islamic laws and they turn them into government laws. And so a lot of countries like Egypt and UAE and other countries, they will have a combination of Sharia, but then also some secular laws, because Sharia doesn't cover everything. And then there are countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia, which are absolute Sharia. And so that means everything has to come from scholars that have looked at the Quran and the Hadith and have come up with the laws. How does it affect women? Well, these books were written 1400 years ago. So how were women treated 1400 years ago? That's how they are treated today. So, the books say, for example, that women cannot be leaders. The women are less intelligent than men, right? So that's the same. It says that a girl cannot inherit the same amount as her brother. It says that in a court of law, a female witness, you require 2 female witnesses to equal 1 male witness, because women can't be trusted, right? These books say that hell is mostly filled with women because women are the main sinners, right? These books are full of horrible, atrocious things. These books say that a man can rape his wife because there's no such thing as marital rape. These books say that a man can beat his wife if he fears arrogance or disobedience from her, right? These books say that men can marry young girls, right? So Muhammad is the example, the greatest example for all humanity, for all time, that we all must follow. He married a 6-year-old. So that's what these books say. So for these books to still be used today in like laws of the country, you get an idea of how women are treated in those countries. Look at Afghanistan.
Yeah. And I think more top of mind is Iran.
Yes.
Which has been jarring to see, especially the left propping up Iran. And what really shook me was when Masa Amini was murdered and the women life freedom movement was taking place, and it was just like the largest, most incredible women run, women focused movement in the world. The left didn't really talk about it that much. It wasn't a huge thing. There were some people who were like, yes, let's do it, but it wasn't huge. But then post October 7, 2023, and post Iran firing hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel, and then Israel has the audacity to try and get rid of their nuclear arsenal and stop them from making a nuclear weapon, all of a sudden, the left is not only against Israel, but in support of the regime of Iran that is actively mutilating, killing, imprisoning gays, women. It's been a very difficult thing for me to wrestle with because it literally makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's also interesting that this is happening in Iran, considering that the Islamic regime of Iran came into power by playing this exact game. So what they did was they got the progressives, the communists, the socialists, the leftists to work with them. So this is Islamists linking hands with the left
The right and the left. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly, to bring down the Shah. And once they did, what did they do? Murdered, imprisoned, disappeared all of these leftists and socialists and communists that helped them get their power. They're finished with the useful idiots. They're not useful anymore, so they got rid of them. So that's what happens when Islamists link hands with the left. They link hands because they both think we're going to bring down whatever, we're going to dismantle whatever it is that they think they're going to dismantle. So in Iran, it was the Shah, and now it's Western world. We want to bring down capitalism. We want, these are the things that they agree on. Yeah. So they think, oh, we're going to link hands and we're going to bring these things down together. Okay, but you're linking hands, like you mentioned, you're linking hands with people who hate women, who hate gay people, who hate freedom, who hate democracy, who hate you and want you dead. They're not thinking of who their bedfellows are, and they're not looking at the history. This has happened so many times throughout the Middle East. This is I'm working on a podcast series now sponsored by Sam Harris called Islam in the West, which exactly looks at this. It looks at how they played these exact games throughout the Middle East, perfected their process, and are now bringing it to your shores here in Europe and Canada and America and Australia. It's happening here. It's not surprising. They have figured it out. And those of us who know, for like you were saying that you are a history buff, right? We know those of us who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I'm saying history, but this is like
recent,
very
50
recent.
years.
Exactly.
50 years.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we're not following what's been going on. We're not, we saw what was happening in Egypt, but nobody's really paying attention. Syria, who knows, whatever.
Who's
Nobody's
Assad?
Exactly, right? Yeah. So people don't really understand what's going on. And so that's, again, adding to the ignorance that I was talking about, which is making us sitting ducks. So the fact that the left and Islamists are linking hands here in the West is unfortunately not a surprise.
Yeah.
But I have been doing my best to try and wake people up, the liberal left, because I think the far left, progressive left, communist, socialist, Marxist, they are way too deep in their hate for Western civilization, in their anti-Semitism as well, that they're just too in bed with the Islamists. But if we can get enough rational liberal people, center right, center left, rational conservatives, everybody who has a brain to pay attention to what's going on right now, to look at how they have used these same tactics throughout the Middle East and are now using those tactics on us, then that could save us. That could be our Hail Mary, possibly.
That's what's among the many things is concerning, is the lack of understanding of history. And we've all heard history repeats itself, or it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, whatever. Yeah. Either way, it's so interesting how people in the moment, at whatever time, in whatever current time is, people just think, oh, it'll be okay. Yeah. It'll be fine. And they don't realize, and with social media now, it's so interesting because I'm pretty in the center. I have beliefs on both sides, but I'm pretty in the center. And I think the vast majority of people, logical people, don't agree that violence is ever a good, like you should never be hurting someone because of differing beliefs. But on social media, I follow people on both sides, and to watch not pundits, not people like who are highly involved in politics, but people who are just everyday people gleefully posting propaganda.
Yeah.
As though like they know what they're talking about, right. As though like, because I try and think of it from their perspective. They think that what they're doing is right. They think that what they're posting is accurate. They think that it's standing up for what's good. And you could throw around the virtue signaling. I'm not even trying to be mean. I actually believe you think you're standing up for what's right. And that's what's the scariest part, is you are standing up for something that will kill you as soon as you give it power. You are standing up for something. You say you hate capitalism and you say you hate Western values. Wait until you see what else there is. Yes. Wait until you see what you have no clue is happening in other parts of the world that have been happening for a very long time that you're ignorant to. You won't understand how great Western values are until all of a sudden you don't have them anymore. And keep in mind, I believe that there are issues here that have need to be resolved. And I'm not saying that capitalism is free of problems. I'm not saying that Western values don't have issues. There are issues with everything. But if you've got to compare the two, it's not even fucking close. And people have no idea how good they have it. And I think, America is really interesting because America is really the only country, and maybe Canada, maybe Australia, but I think America is probably one of the potentially the best example of this. It's the only country in which the people who vehemently say they hate it don't leave.
Yeah.
It's the only country where they're like, if you are like, I'm all about Iran, no one's going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you are like all the people who are like, I stand about Gaza or whatever it is, it's like, go.
Yeah.
It's the only country where you can stand with all the chutzpah, with all the confidence, and burn the flag, not be thrown in jail for it, and I'm still gonna stay though. It's scary. Because people are doing it with their whole heart and soul, thinking they're standing for what's right.
Yeah.
And they're actually long term killing themselves, their family, their descendants. It's
absolutely 100%. And they don't even have to move to Iran or any of these other countries. Like, I'd love for them to just go visit there.
Yeah.
Like, just
on
go get a
vacation.
clue. Just go get the first clue
Yeah.
before you start, spewing all of these ridiculous
propaganda
things. Yeah.
You touched on it a bit, but I would like you to go into a little bit more detail. Growing up in a radical Islamist home, what were you taught about Jews and gays and just everyday people of other religions?
So all other religions need to bow to Allah. Everybody needs to become Muslim. Islam needs to spread across the whole globe. So Islam currently, it was in Arabia, and now it's taken over like a quarter of the planet. People that talk about anti-colonialists. Like,
Correct.
these are the most successful colonialists, right?
It's not even close.
It's not even close. And the colonizing is still continuing, but just in different ways. But that's the aim. That's the goal. If you are a true believing Muslim, you have to spread Islam. How you do it, however, is up to you. So there's different ways of doing it. So people can do it through, so the Islamists, like the Muslim Brotherhood, they suggest some ways of doing it. Some ways like through immigration, so changing the demographics so that you can have more voting power.
Which they're doing very successfully.
Which they are doing very successfully. Through the wombs of the Muslim mothers, so same thing, making babies, increasing your population.
Yasser Arafat was famous for saying that. Yeah.
Yep. And through using secular laws against itself. Secular laws against themselves. So that is something that is being used successfully as well all the time through hiding under the guise of freedom of religion. When in actuality, what they're doing is they are spreading their own religion. They are involved in dawah. So, for example, I'll talk about schools in Canada. So we had completely gotten Christianity out of school. When I was very young, people used to say the Lord's Prayer in schools in Canada. They're like, no, secularism, we're no longer going to do that. We also used to have separate schools for Protestants and Catholics. Now, nope, no such thing. Now everybody goes to public schools together. Okay? All right. However, when Muslims said we want to have a prayer room in the school and we want to have half of Friday off because we want to go for our prayers, they were like, yeah, absolutely, of course, freedom of religion, right? And so they let them do that. And now what's happening? Kids are converting to Islam. Why? Because those prayer rooms are being used as centers for dawah. And dawah is a way of spreading Islam. It's like missionary work, right? It's just a different way of doing it. So whether you're doing it through scaring people through, the trucks of peace or stabbing people randomly or, like bombing at the Ariana Grande concert or all of those kinds of ways that people are aware of. But there are so many other insidious ways that they're also spreading Islam. Through, like I mentioned, having the adhan playing in any street of America. That should not be happening. I heard the adhan playing in Tel Aviv, and I was repulsed. There has to be this is not okay.
But that speaks to, for whatever it's worth,
I know
Israel is not an apartheid state.
Of course not.
You have Muslims.
20%.
2 million Muslims, 20%, millions of Muslims. So it does speak to that. And I will say, I'm glad that they have it, because if they removed that, it wouldn't be Israel.
Yeah.
And you can disagree. It's okay to disagree.
I understand there's a different reasoning for it in Israel, and it's a different story. You know what I mean? But you're now introducing it into America, and it's it's
different. It's different. Different worlds.
It's different worlds. We're not in the Middle East.
Yes.
I don't love hearing it anywhere in the world, to be honest. I don't want to hear it anywhere, but I certainly don't want to see it being introduced into, secular societies.
Yes.
In Egyptian Arabic, they call it a sim fil asal. So it's the poison in the honey. So Islamists will do things like, oh, we're going to build schools, right? But you don't know what they're teaching in those schools, right? We're going to build hospitals. We're going to build, women's centers. We're going to build this. We're going to build that. So they look like humanitarians, but you don't know what they're actually doing until your child says that they want to be a suicide bomber and move to Syria, right? Yeah. And then you're like, what's going on? So again, we're very aware of their tactics throughout the Middle East. The Muslim Brotherhood, in fact, are considered a terrorist organization in almost every Arab country.
Yes.
Right? But they're not in the UK. They're not in America yet. Right? They're not in Canada. They're not in Australia. They're not anywhere in Europe. Right? Because we don't know what we're dealing with here.
Al Jazeera is banned in countless Arab countries as a propaganda organization. But here in the States and in Canada and the UK, it's people are referencing Al Jazeera all the time. It's you understand, Arab countries don't allow them to write. Arab countries don't allow this because it's so dangerous.
Yep. Perfect example. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So this spreading of Islam is the number one goal of believing Muslims. So as I mentioned before, there are Muslims who don't want to do that. They're like, no, I'm going to, they call it cherry picking. They're choosing for what parts of the religion they want to follow and what parts they don't want to follow. And all respect to those people who are choosing to pick out the bad parts and to just pick the good parts. That's great. I'm fine with that. I would rather have a bad Muslim as my neighbor and going to school with my kids than a good Muslim. You know what I mean? I do not want somebody who is really following the edicts of their religion to be in my neighborhood. That is terrifying. So when we talk about that spectrum, now there's a question of well, how many are on this side? How many are on that side? How many are in the middle? Those numbers, I don't know. It changes all the time, and it depends on where you are, and it depends on who you ask, and it depends on if they're telling you the truth or not. That's a really hard thing for me to try and guess. But what I can tell you is even the quote unquote bad Muslims, the ones who are not following their religion, the ones who are drinking, sleeping around, whatever, living their lives, believe in democracy and freedom of speech, who don't have a problem if you draw Muhammad, who don't want to kill Salman Rushdie, these folks over here, when these radicals are doing their business, they won't say anything. They won't say anything for two reasons. Number one, they're ashamed because they're but they're the good Muslims. They're actually following their religion, and I'm not really doing that. And the second reason is they're afraid of them.
Yeah.
Because these guys are going to, they have, it's all about proximity. They have access to them. So whether it's their family, whether it's their community, whether it's their society, they're surrounded by Muslims. If you are a Muslim, you're surrounded by Muslims. And so you have to be really careful about what you speak up against. And so that's why it feels like these guys are the more powerful, they're the louder, they're the more aggressive, but who knows what the truth is. But the fact is, unfortunately, that because these guys are quiet, they're almost irrelevant. It just makes them, they're pointless. What's the point? It doesn't matter if you're the bigger number, if you're not doing anything about it. You're not fighting from within. You've got a few bad apples, as you were mentioning, like, okay, a couple million here and there is not that many, like compared to the 2 billion. Okay, but that's a few bad apples in your barrel. That's problematic. As you mentioned, 19 people is all it took for 9/11 to happen.
Right.
And so they need to speak up. They need to fight within their own religion. But I say that knowing it's an extremely dangerous thing to do.
I mean, I'm really glad you brought that point up because as I was going through the Pew Research Center data, one of the points that stuck out to me, and I forget, I didn't take a note of it, but it was the overwhelming majority of radical Islamist violence is against other Muslims. It was, I forget if it was 86% or 90%. It was a tremendous, super high percentage that basically is because they are practicing Islam in a way that they don't believe is the right way to practice Islam. So of course, if you are a quote unquote bad Muslim and not doing it in the way that they would deem you should be, you're going to be too scared to speak up. Because if you do, now all of a sudden they know you're a bad Muslim and they're more likely to take it out on you. It's a really interesting point that I hadn't really considered.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. And right now it's all about access and proximity. Really, that's all it is. Like if they had access and if they were able to do the same to non-Muslims, they would. It's like, well, people see what's going on with, Hamas and Israel right now. I'm like, Iran funding Hamas. It's like, well, the Shias are funding the Sunnis. And I'm like, yeah, because they all want to kill the Jews. Right? You see, it's like there's a saying in Arabic where it's like, me and my brother against my cousin, me and my brother and my cousin against the foreigner. So this is, they will, they will make friends with their enemies when there's like a bigger enemy. And I've tried to explain to people, like, Israel's in the Middle East. It's proximity right now. That's all it is. Like, do you think they wouldn't do another 9/11? That they would love to. They're probably planning it all the time.
100%.
You know? So it's not that they are choosing necessarily, but they're going to kill and like punish anybody who is not following Islam the way they believe Islam should be followed. And this is across the globe. So Hindus, kill them off. Jews and Christians, take them as dhimmis, right? Treat them as second-class citizens because they're people of the book, right? Polytheists, Zoroastrians, all the rest, they don't matter. Just kill them. This is what the Quran teaches, right? You keep doing this. Convert or die, convert or die, convert or die, convert or die until the whole world is converted. That's the aim.
That's the goal for a global Sharia. If you could instantly hit delete on all religion and remove it from the world, would you do it?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that because I understand that my experience with religion was extremely toxic. But I do also understand that religion can be a source of community, emotional support for people. We are pack animals. We need each other. And some people need that support system more than others. And religion can be beautiful and it can be positive, but it can also be vicious and it can also be genocidal and it can also be horrific. And so I wouldn't hit delete. I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I would have very, 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 very strict secular laws that keep religion away from the public. So away from government, away from education, away from the media, away from the public sphere. Practice your faith in your home, in your mosque, in your school, in your whatever, and that's it. You can't, none of that can seep out into the public sphere. So I think France is starting now to get that line pretty clear.
Yep.
And they were forced to do that because, of course, they dealt with more terrorism than anyone else in Europe. And so they're forced to finally figure out, what are we going to do? We have so many Muslims in this country and the numbers are increasing. So we have to figure out what is the best strategy forward. So they're doing certain things like making sure that any imam who is preaching in a mosque is licensed. So they have to get their license from France, like the government has to approve them. So they've been vetted, right? So they're not going to be like the kinds of people we see in America or Canada. There was an imam in Detroit that was encouraging on a Friday. He was this is after October 7th. He was telling his people, just go ahead and try to kill a Jew. It's a win-win. It's a win-win situation. If you kill the Jew, you kill the Jew. You die trying, you go to heaven. It's a win-win. Don't worry about it. This is Detroit, Michigan, right? This is United States of America. That guy wouldn't be able to speak up in UAE.
No.
That guy wouldn't be able to say that in Saudi Arabia. That guy wouldn't be able to say that in a lot of Arab countries, and he wouldn't be able to say it in France. But this is what happens. Secular laws against themselves. Free speech, right? Is he inciting violence? I don't know. It's pretty fucking clear. But you know what I mean? This is what they use. It's these nebulous terms and this, hiding under secular laws. So we have to be very, very clear. We have to know our enemy. We have to know and we do not. Absolutely do not. We have to know our enemy and we have to understand how important it is to protect ourselves, and we have to understand their tactics. They're not that smart. They are not, honestly, they're not. They've been doing it. We see what they've been doing all over the world. Like, it's so obvious. We know their tactics. The only reason why it's working here is because we don't know. We don't know what we're up against, You know
what I'll say to that is, it's actually horrifying what I'm about to say. And I want to talk about Israel and Gaza, and because you have both Palestinian and Egyptian heritage. I always wonder, why are they winning the PR war? And if you really look at it, it's not because Israel's bad at it per se, and it's not because they're even good at it. What they've done is they have weaponized the good-hearted nature of the West by allowing their civilians to die, and Hamas goes in the tunnels underground and hides, and their civilians take the brunt of it. And they willingly and gladly allow their civilians, they kill their own civilians, they slaughter their own civilians.
They're doing it right now.
And no one, not a peep. Israel's not there anymore, and they're killing their own people, and they will use their own destruction, the innocent civilians who are suffering, because anyone with a heart and a mind can look at that and say, that's bad. Innocent people shouldn't be dying. And that is why they win the PR war, because they are willing to sacrifice their own civilians to change the hearts and minds of good-minded people, of good-hearted people. Israel's not willing to do that. Israel isn't willing to kill their own civilians to change the minds of people in the West. But when you look at the radicals and you look at what they're willing to do, that's why they're winning this war, because good-hearted people are seeing dead, innocent people, children, on their phones and saying this shouldn't be happening. And we agree it shouldn't be happening, but who's to blame?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to look at these horrifying images and say, oh, well, they're the ones that did that. So it's as simple as clear-cut as that. And it's not as simple as clear-cut as that, because there's so much going on. But if the government is hiding underground in tunnels and pushing the civilians to the top, after that quote unquote government, the terrorist organization, just infiltrated a sovereign nation and slaughtered thousands of people and took hundreds of hostages, the scale of which would have been 30,000 innocent civilians in the United States slaughtered, 10,000 taken hostage to Mexico. What do you think Mexico would be, right? It'd be a fucking parking lot. So that's why they're winning the PR war, because they don't value the lives of their citizens.
Yes, everything you said, yes. And two more points. Number one, when I was speaking to Dr. Orly Petter, who's a neuropsychologist who is the vice president of Free Hearts, Free Minds, she was telling me that, I can't remember the exact percentage, but the vast majority of our brain is visual. We take in information visually. So those who want to weaponize our empathy understand that, and they know that it's all about the visuals. On October 7th, when I opened my phone up in the morning and saw the image of Shani Luke on that truck,
Oh my gosh.
I'll never get that image out of my head. And that's all I needed to, like, that is enough. Like, you just are, that's it. I am going to be every cell in my body will be fighting against this until the day I die.
Yes.
At that point, those terrorists had recorded the entire massacre.
Yeah.
They were proud of themselves. There's video of this, which I refused to watch because I can't get Shani Luke out of my head. I'm not going to watch, an hour long of people being massacred. But there is video that exists of what they did to these innocent people, families in their homes, kids going to a music
They
festival.
put it on Facebook Live. They GoPro'd it.
That decision, at that point, there was a decision that was being made. Should we allow these images to be out into the world, or should we protect the families, the survivors, and respect for the dead,
Yes.
too,
Correct.
and make sure that all of these images get taken down? That was a really, 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 really difficult decision.
Yeah.
And I understood at that point, I was like, if they let these images out, the world will know.
Yes.
There will be no question, because everybody will see. And there's no way that they're going to be able to see anything else. But also, I understand the Jewish community, and I understand how much respect they have for life and for each other. And I understood this choice to protect the dead, protect the survivors, protect the families over winning the PR war at that point.
Yes.
Because that's really what the decision was. It's going to be harder now to fight the PR war, but at least we're going to do it with our dignity intact, with our integrity intact, with our humanity intact,
Yes.
because we didn't stoop to letting these images out into the world. So that's the first point I wanted to make. And my second point is they've co-opted this little childish equation that we have right now, which is brown versus white, oppressor versus oppressed, good versus bad, right? And so they want everything to fit into this little, Sesame Street level, childish thinking, simplistic thinking formula. And if they have in their minds that Jews are white and Palestinians are brown, Jews are successful and Arabs are refugees. So they have this dichotomy in their head, and they're just, when they see this situation, they just plop it into that same formula without thinking, right? And they also co-opt America's story.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So indigenous people, we came, we took their land, and now we are settler colonialists and da da da. And it's the same thing over there. Well, no, It's the exact opposite over
Correct.
there. Over there, the indigenous people got their own land back.
Yes.
Right? It's an anti-colonialist
Correct.
situation that we've got here. This is something like Yazidis and Kurds and Druze and so many other Arabs from the
Yep.
Middle East are so proud of the Jewish people, saying, you did it.
Yep.
You got your homeland back, right? Because all of these people lost their homelands. If you weren't a Muslim, right? We talked about, colonizing a quarter of the planet. All of these minority groups, where are they?
Gone.
Right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And so people don't understand that. They don't
know the
understand
history.
Israel. They don't
know.
know the history. So they're co-opting the stories that they already have. And it's just this almost, unfortunate narcissism where they just want to be able to self-flagellate and say like, oh, it's our fault. Oh, we went into Iraq. Oh, we did this. Oh, we did that. Instead of understanding the history of the Middle East and understanding that there was blood shed between Muslims while Muhammad's body was still warm. Like Islam started, it was always about bloodshed. It was always about spreading Islam through the sword. It was always about killing the infidels. And they don't understand that. They don't know that. They don't understand Hamas. They don't understand the colonialist Arabs and Muslims. They don't understand Iran. They don't understand anything about the Middle East. They just look at Israel and they say, ooh, my professor in university told me that Zionists are bad. They're repeating literal anti-Semitic tropes.
Yes. Yep.
From the 1930s. And it's like, how is this happening? Like Holocaust survivors are still alive.
Yeah.
And we're already repeating the Nazi tropes, just they don't even realize what they're doing. They're so caught up in this thinking that they are the good guy.
Yes.
Thinking that they are doing the virtuous thing. I mean, there's that old thing, like no cult encourages people to join by, telling them the bad parts, right? They tell them the good parts. I've recently had a guy on my podcast who for 20 years was part of the pro-Palestinian movement. And it wasn't until...
What's his name?
His name is Michael...
oh, I saw this. Okay, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I need to listen to that. Okay.
Yeah, he's a Coptic Christian. And he converted to Islam because he hated Muslims so much. Or sorry... He hated Jews so much, and that allowed him, right? And he hated Jews because why? Because he was part of the pro-Palestinian movement. And so he was in that ideological, genocidal soup for so long. And then when October 7th happened, thank goodness.
Wow.
He was able to find his humanity buried under there. His father helped him.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was through watching people ripping down posters of hostages, babies, ripping down their...
Beavis.
Yeah. And he realized it was kind of like the moment I had after 9/11. Like, I can't be a part of this group. I can't identify with the people who do this kind of thing.
That's fortunate that's because October 7th was either you went one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that he was like, oh, shit, this is not the way that I want to go. It's just so wild to me that so many people went the exact opposite direction and use it as an opportunity to fuel the anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I speak with people who are like, oh, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm just anti-Zionist. It's an interesting conversation because my first question is always, what is Zionism? Mm-hmm. And none of them know. Mm-hmm. Not a single person in the fitness world, people use the word metabolism. And they'll say, I've got a slow metabolism. And my first question is, what is metabolism? And they have no clue. They have this general idea of what they've been told, and it must have something to do with weight, but they've got no clue. Zionism is the same thing. People hear Zionism bad. Zionism is a colonial settler project, but they have no clue what it actually means. And that's when you're able to convince someone of doing evil things when they don't know
Yeah.
what it is. That's how you're able to convince, when you can brainwash them.
And it's you mentioned before that people on the far right just say Jews. They don't
just say
say
it.
Zionists. Same thing with Muslims. Do you think they're running around saying Zionists? They're saying Jews. They use these words for the West.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, we're not racist. This is a political problem that we're talking about here. Like, no, we know that it's a ploy.
Yeah.
In my book, I called it the inside voice and the outside voice, right? Like this is just the words that they use. You mentioned Al Jazeera. You'll see Al Jazeera Arabic will say Jews,
Yep.
and Al Jazeera English will say Zionists, right? Like they're pandering to their audience.
Correct.
So yeah, there's no difference between those two terms.
So I do want to get into Israel, and so you have both Palestinian and Egyptian ancestry. I would love to know what your thoughts on Israel are, and what are your thoughts on the most recent war?
So yeah, my father is from Gaza, and he grew up in Gaza during a time when Israelis were coming and going, right? Coming to the beach, coming to buy fish. Like it was all just like a normal life. And my father was never anti-Semitic. He's
Oh, wow.
absolutely not.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he definitely wanted Gaza to be an independent homeland. He hated Yasser Arafat and all of the Muslim Brotherhood. He obviously hated Hamas. He was disgusted, appalled, and embarrassed.
When was he there? When was he born?
He was born in the 40s, 46, I want to say.
In Gaza?
Yes,
And so he was born when it was under Egyptian control.
that's right.
So was he an Egyptian citizen?
He never got Egyptian citizenship. None of them did.
So, because a
didn't-
lot of people don't know this history, that Israel didn't even take control of Gaza until I believe it was 67. So he was born in Gaza, but not an Egyptian citizen, even though it was under Egyptian control.
That's right. Egypt never gave Palestinians citizenship. They don't give Palestinian citizenship anywhere in the Arab world. Right?
Not Jordan, not Lebanon, nowhere. Yeah.
Exactly. They could live there for generations.
Yeah.
They're not getting citizenship. In fact, I was speaking to a Lebanese Palestinian guy who was born in Lebanon, who was telling me there are certain jobs he can't even take.
Yes.
There's certain education routes he can't even learn because he's Palestinian.
Yes.
You're not allowed to become an engineer. You have to become one of these jobs over here. So we talk about apartheid states, we can have that conversation. Yeah.
So he was in Gaza and not anti-Semitic, and Jews were going in and out.
And my mom grew up in Cairo, never met a Jewish person in her life, and she's one of the most viciously anti-Semitic people that you'd ever meet. Her and her family and almost everybody in Egypt. It's like the term for Jewish person is like the worst slur. It's like if you really want to insult somebody, if you want to like put your life in danger, call somebody Yehudi. So that is the difference. They've never interacted with Jewish people. They don't know Jewish people. They don't understand anything. They are just seeped in ignorance and this boogeyman, scary, in my book, I talked about my aunt when we went to the market and the cucumbers were small. And she's like, oh, those Jews, they're putting cancer in the vegetables, making them small. And I was like, what? We laugh.
You
but
have to laugh, otherwise you
this.
cry.
They
Yeah.
believe this. They believe that Jews are controlling the weather. Jews are controlling everything. There's not a bad thing that could happen, big or small or anything in between, that they won't blame a Jew for it. Or just the Jewish people in general. Like they're all just like this evil entity out there in the world. That's what they believe. And like I said, they've never met a Jewish person in their life. They don't know anything. So it's easy for them to believe all of these lies. For someone like my dad, who grew up with Jewish people as his neighbors and friends and coworkers, that indoctrination is not going to work on him, right? He's already inoculated against it. And so when Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2006.
Yes.
And when I say pulled out of Gaza, they even pulled their dead out of cemeteries and took them to Israel. They left Gaza entirely to Gazans and said, here is your land. Do with it what you like. They left greenhouses for them. They left infrastructure for them to progress their people. And what did they choose to do with the billions of dollars of funding that was coming to them every year? Build tunnels, a system more intricate than the New York subway system. That's what they chose to do. Instead of uplifting their people, they decided to focus on terrorism. So I think there's a huge difference between Muslims who have never met Jewish people, like in Pakistan and, everywhere else, or Muslims that have met, interacted, lived with, worked with Jewish people. So when Israel left Gaza in 2006 and left
It's a really interesting perspective. I hadn't considered that.
left Gaza for them and said, "Here, this is your land. Do with it what you want." That meant there was no longer interaction with Jewish people. And so as a byproduct of that, what has happened is the younger generations, this isn't true for like the Gen X and above, right? They don't have this kind of just vicious hate for Israel and for Jewish people. The younger generations do. And
I had never even thought about that.
yeah, there's I can't remember the name of the person that he was interviewing, but it was Hen Mazig.
Yeah.
He's
amazing.
Yeah, he was interviewing an IDF soldier who spoke Arabic and was imprisoned in Gaza, and he was talking about how he was talking with them and hearing them talking and could really see the difference between the generations.
What are your thoughts on this war, this most recent one? What are your thoughts on how Israel has conducted itself? What do you think about? Let me ask you this. What do you think that Israel does well? And what do you think Israel needs to improve on?
Well, that's giving me that's
Free
a
reign.
lot.
Free reign.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also really putting me in a holier than thou position to I can
It's just your
espouse from where I'm sitting, but it's like I don't have all of the pieces of all of the puzzles. So, I don't want to pontificate too much, but I will say that on October 7th, like I mentioned, when I saw Shani Luke on that truck and I saw those men spitting on her mangled body, I knew it was over for Gaza. And I wrote about it, and it was published on October 10th, where I said, this is it. Gaza's over. The whole project is finished. I'm glad my father wasn't alive to see this. But of course, this is it, And I hadn't even had a clue how much they had done that day, But, I mean, look at what happened. What was the response to Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People like to be all, judgy, especially they love to judge Israel. You know what I mean? But you have, like you just explained, you said monsters coming across the border, killing tens of thousands of your citizens is when, if you compare it to America and Mexico. How did you expect them to react? And that Israel has one of the strongest militaries in the world because it has to.
Or it dies.
You have bomb shelters in every single home. You have bomb shelters in playgrounds, for goodness sake.
Yep.
They're living under constant threat. So, of course, their security is really good. Their military is really good. And you're going to mess with them? You're going to get what you're going to get. This is not a surprise.
Right.
You knew what you were doing. They knew what they were doing, and they knew that they were going to get international support.
Yes.
And they understood the whole thing, right? They knew what was going to happen. But Israel had to react very strongly. It has to protect its citizens. And what people tend to forget is Israel is full of Holocaust survivors. Israel is a country full of people whose families are refugees from Yemen, Egypt, Iraq, the Farhud, right? These are traumatized people that found a strip of land in the world where they could feel most safe. And I say that most safe when we just finished talking about all of the bomb shelters and, the need for the Iron Dome and all of these things, right? But it's where they ran to for the one little piece of the world where they could feel safe. And what did you expect the Israeli government to do when suddenly these people who finally found a tiny strip of land to feel safe on didn't feel safe anymore because people came across their border and were killing families in their homes? They have to protect their country. They have to protect their citizens. It's what any other country would have done. Mm-hmm. When people bring up images of the war in Gaza and they say, oh, look at this happened, you could bring up images from the war in Syria, from the war in Yemen, from the war in Ukraine, from the war anywhere, and it would look the same.
Yep.
War is ugly. Nobody wants war. Israel didn't ask for this.
Correct.
It was a response, right? So nobody's saying war, isn't going to be horrible and children aren't going to die and atrocious things aren't going to happen. Of course they're going to happen. And that's why people try to avoid war. But Hamas started this war and it was incumbent on Israel to protect its people. And so that's what they did. And I understood, of course, from that first minute that Gaza wasn't going to continue the way, of course not. It's like after the Holocaust asking, Israel, are you okay with being neighbors with Germany? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not all Nazis, it's absolutely horrible. Like, of course it's not going to happen. Like, that's it. We're done. And so I think it's pragmatic. This is what had to happen. This is what has happened. Where are we going to go from here? How are we going to move forward from here? I don't know. But if I had a magic wand, I would want the UAE to get involved. The UAE can get involved for two reasons. I think that they would be the best to take, to take sort of like leadership over this area. Obviously, it can't be left to the hands of Hamas.
Absolutely not.
And Palestinian Authority,
Nope.
Yeah. So the reason why I think it should be the UAE is, number one, the UAE has their head on straight.
Yes, they do.
Now when it comes to Israel.
Yeah, they have great relations.
They have great relations. They understand what's going on. Saudi Arabia is close on their heels. Saudi Arabia has already taken the anti-Semitic ahadith from the curriculums in the schools. So they're already, they're changing. But the UAE has already changed. And so ideologically, we're good. And also, they have the money to help rebuild Gaza. So I feel like just the same way Gaza was under the Egyptian authority in the past, like if it was somehow under an Emirati authority to help rebuild it, the Emirates could be involved in the rebuilding of the schools and the education system and the media. And because there's a lot of hateful propaganda going on in Gaza for decades.
Yes.
And so they've been growing terrorists. They've been cultivating terrorists all of these years. And so there needs to be a lot of work. I have so little faith in, that kind of like idea of rehabilitating terrorists. Mm-hmm. So I think that more importantly than rehabilitating terrorists is just having, and the UAE is good at this because they do this in their country, unfortunately, is just having very, very strict laws. Sometimes they can be a little bit too strict, but they know what they're dealing with, right? Very, very strict laws against criminals, offenders, you know what I mean? Anybody who's going to try and spread Islamist ideology. You can't do that in the UAE,
No. There was a Chabad rabbi that was killed somewhere recently, and they tracked down the people who did it and killed him.
Yeah. Right. I know. I mean, that's what they do. And so if they come down like that in Gaza,
that's
then,
a great point.
That's a deterrent. And then for the younger generations, their education is not going to be full of anti-Semitism and hate and kill the Jews. I mean, this is what they would do in their school
Their
plays,
books. Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
books, their puppets on TV, their stores. There's a store called Hitler, and the mannequins have knives taped to their hands, right? There's little kids taking their bears, chopping off their heads and saying, oh, I'm going to grow up and kill the Jews. Like it's so normalized there. And so there has to be a lot of, grassroots, bottom up work to try and change all that. And it is possible.
It is.
It is 100% possible. It's just going to take time.
Yeah. There's a lot that I want to talk about that and discuss. One thing that stands out specifically to the crowd who's been shouting ceasefire now, and talking about genocide and blah, blah, blah. And we can talk about genocides all day. They're very quiet now.
Yeah.
Now that Hamas has returned the living hostages and Israel's retreated, now the only people who are killing in Gaza are Hamas, and they're killing their own civilians, executing them publicly, videos of it, horrific images, not a peep, not a word. The only thing that I hear is ceasefire is not enough. Yeah. Israel must cease to exist. So this whole thing you've been chanting for 2 years now.
The truth is out.
Now, so it wasn't about a ceasefire. It's not about that. And it's realistically, if we're going to talk, because all they've been saying is ceasefire now, Israel wants to take over Gaza. And it's been very clear, Israel is not going to take over Gaza. So everything you've been saying hasn't come true. All Israel wanted was to get its hostages back, which, by the way, Hamas has not returned the dead hostages' bodies yet. Mm-hmm. I bet they have no clue where the bodies are, and they're just trying to buy time. But everything that you've said that was going to happen has not happened. If Israel wanted to exterminate every Palestinian in Gaza, October 8th, done. Mm-hmm. The only reason this war is carried out for over 2 years is because Israel has tried as hard as possible to save as many lives as they can. And about 1,000 Israeli soldiers have died, a third of which from friendly fire, from mistakes made by the IDF. It's, and I'm going to circle back to it, something else, because you were talking about, this is going back a little bit in the conversation, you were saying post-Holocaust, Jews just wanted a strip of land where they could feel safe. And I'm going to tie two things together here. Mm-hmm. Because I know the people listening will be like, well, they went to a land that wasn't theirs. Mm-hmm. And you had said the slur for Jew is Yehud. Mm-hmm. And that's Arabic for Jew. Mm-hmm. Where does that word come from? Mm-hmm. Well, Yehud comes from Yehudia. Jews are from Yehudia, which is, in English, Judea. Mm-hmm. So you're calling them, where are Jordanians from? Jordan. Where are Saudis from? Saudi Arabia. Where are Chinese people from? China. Where are Jews from? Judea. They went back to the land from which they were from. It's so ironic that they're saying they're going to a land that wasn't theirs, when in reality, it's as if Native Americans were able to come back in full and have control over the United States land.
Yeah, but what's important here is going back to, because Jews never left
That's exactly
that land.
Right. It's a great point.
Jews had been on that land for generations and generations and generations. That had always been their land. Arabs also lived with them.
Yep. Yes, correct.
But it's not like it became Arab land. There was never such thing as the state of Palestine. Right?
Correct.
It was not Arab land that Jews just came in from all over the world and suddenly took over. That's the story that they're being told, right? But that's the story that I was told. That's not true. Mm-hmm. And also, it wasn't only Jews post-Holocaust. It was Jews that were coming, like I mentioned, from Egypt, from Syria, from Morocco, from Algeria, from Yemen, yeah. From Iraq, from all over, from the Middle East as well, or other parts of the Middle East, where they are being basically through pogroms and through,
the Farhud.
Through all sorts of threats that they were leaving. And it wasn't, people that had lived in Egypt for generations, for example, Egyptian families that lived in Egypt for generations, suddenly being told, you're not Egyptian, get out of here, go
Right.
back to your homeland.
Right.
Like that was devastating. That is devastating for people, And so they're told, go back to your homeland. They go back to their homeland and then they get told, get out of here. So it's like, where do you want them to go?
Yeah.
Where is it okay for Jews to be alive? You let us know what you think.
You said, I have a quote here. You said, groups like Queers for Palestine march for Hamas, the same group that would kill them on sight just for existing. It's shocking how the simple-mindedness of TikTok activism is drowning out even basic rationality. Why do you think they're doing this? Do you think it's just ignorance? They just don't know that Hamas would kill them? Like, because gays in Gaza are killed. They're thrown off
Oh, yeah.
buildings.
No, they're more than just killed. They're like tied to the back of motorcycles and, driven across until their bodies are completely mutilated.
Meanwhile, miles away in Israel, they have one of the biggest gay pride parades in the world. There's no issues. People from Gaza flee to Israel if they're gay. People from Yemen, people from Egypt, people from Lebanon who are gay, trans, bi, whatever, they flee there because it's the only place in the Middle East that they won't be persecuted. Why in the world is that movement aligning with a genocidal organization that would gladly kill them the moment they had the opportunity?
That's a very good question. Why is a movement that believes that colonialism is bad linking hands with the largest colonialists in the world? You know what I mean? Like there are so many questions. If they believe in women's rights and then they're linking hands with a group that believes that little girls are grown women. So none of it makes any sense. But they're not thinking it through. They're not staying, like, just stay with the same thought, like 5 more seconds. Like you're explaining, how are you supporting Iran? Iran is against all of the things that you pretend to believe in. All they can see is good guy, bad guy, and I want to be a good guy, so I'm going to be on this side. And they're not thinking. And it is important to say that this is TikTok level because I hope that most rational minded adults, with their prefrontal cortex that has been like over 25 years old at least, that they have, their brains are fully functioning, are able to see the nuance in this discussion, that can understand that something like Queers for Palestine, I would love for everybody who is part of Queers for Palestine to go to Palestine.
Yes, please take a trip. I'll pay for it.
Yeah, go do the kinds of the Palestine flag waving that you do, wearing, your leather thongs and the stuff, the dances that you're doing in the streets. Go do that in Palestine, please. I beg of you.
These are also, and as you've said, these are the people who are saying free the nipple.
Yes.
When these are the people who are killing women for not covering their hair.
Yeah. Yeah. Such moral confusion.
What to me, and I don't want to have, I have a few more questions, not much, but to me, what is really striking is the deafening silence over other atrocities and legitimate genocides happening right now, today. We have over 500,000 people, innocent people who were slaughtered under Bashar al-Assad in Syria. We've got over 500,000 people who have died in the Ethiopian genocide, which, by the way, the UN, for whatever you think it's worth, noted, they say it's ethnic cleansing. Over 150,000 children have died from starvation in the Ethiopian genocide. We have over 300,000 slaughtered in Darfur. We have over, right now, 2 million starving children in Yemen as a direct result of the Houthis and their blockades. Tens of thousands slaughtered in the Yazidi genocide, including, as I'm sure you talk about all the time, over 7,000 young girls taken as slaves. Here's my point with this, because I know the next discussion in this debate would be, well, just because I don't talk about it doesn't mean that I don't care about it. And I agree. You don't have to talk about every single thing in order to care about it. But what I saw post Charlie Kirk assassination were people, myself included, who spoke about it and said it was how horrific it was. And these people said, well, why didn't you say anything about Melissa Hortman and her husband who were slaughtered in their home? And I was like, that's a great point. We should talk about that. Absolutely. You can't have that both ways. You can't say that I'm okay not talking about this, but you also have to talk about this. It makes no sense to have that. It's a juxtaposition. It's a cognitive dissonance. It's a whataboutism that you are forcing others to abide by, but not yourself. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. No, what you said is absolutely true. And I think what's starting to get media attention now, thanks to Bill Maher too,
Yes.
is how many Christians are being killed in Nigeria as well.
Thousands and 100,000.
It's literally a genocide. So what we're seeing is when they are Muslims across the world causing all of these atrocities that we just listed, nobody wants to talk about it. No Jews, no news, right? But when Israel is defending itself against one of these terrorist groups, they're the bad guys, right? So yeah, it's a complete and utter, absolute betrayal of their own humanity in them making the choice to stay completely silent when it's Muslims who are causing the massacres and to only speak up when it's Jewish people. And we see that same kind of betrayal happening when it's women who are the victims of Muslim rapists, terrorists, killers, right? Whether it's Israel, whether it's Jewish women on October 7th, whether it's Hindu and Sikh women and Christian women in Pakistan, whether it's Christian women in Nigeria, right? Whether it's the British girls and all over the, Rotherham. We don't want to talk about that because their perpetrators are Muslims. So these are not the victims that we're going to be supporting. So they make this choice over and over and over again. Now, I think there's two reasons for it. Number one, I think it is fear, because this whole Islamophobia, this whole forcing people to stay silent, bite their tongue, not criticize Muslims or Islam or any of their actions is effective. It works, right? When you behead Samuel Paty, when you stab Salman Rushdie in the eye, when you do these things, people are scared. So I think that's part of it. And I think another part of it, honestly, is a bigotry of low expectations.
Talk about that.
Absolutely. They're holding Jewish people to a higher standard, not just a higher standard, an unrealistic standard that nobody is going to be able to fulfill. This standard of altruism to the point of when somebody is coming to stab you in the neck, you should just pray for them. I don't know what they want Israelis to do, honestly. They're not allowed to retaliate at all. They're not allowed to protect themselves. But that level of this ridiculous expectation for Israel, but then have zero expectations, almost expecting them to be barbaric and demonic and animalistic. It's okay. It's who they are. This is what they do. You know what I mean?
Rooted in bigotry.
Absolutely rooted in bigotry.
That's so interesting. If you could speak directly to the overwhelming majority of peaceful and loving Muslims, what would you tell them needs to be done to counter the radical extremism that is being fueled from within the community?
I would ask them to be just 1% more brave. Just 1%, and then that can grow over time. But just a little bit more brave. So as you mentioned, I'm co-director of the Clarity Coalition. I am co-director with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, who is a Muslim man. So he is a Muslim man from Syria, and I am an ex-Muslim woman. So technically he should want me killed. We should hate each other, right? But we work together to, run this coalition with people from all over the world. So it's Jewish people, Christian
I
people,
love
Muslim
this.
people,
I
atheists,
want to be involved in
Hindus.
this. I
Absolutely.
want to be involved.
Please.
That
100%, we would love to have you involved. So we are a group of people from all over the world who are supporting Western civilization, supporting democracy, supporting freedom, and fighting against Islamist propaganda, whether it's in media, government, or education, or anywhere else. And so we're doing that. Like I mentioned, a lot of Muslim people are with us in
it's
Clarity.
amazing.
It is amazing, and they are incredibly brave. And I would encourage more Muslims to join us, right? Because if you are a Muslim who understands the difference between a Muslim and an Islamist, and you recognize that all of this, violent terrorist activity is making you look bad. You want to walk around like an average freedom-loving American Muslim, but you know that your reputation is getting marred because people are seeing Muslims the way they're treating Christians in Nigeria, the way they're treating Jewish people in Israel, the way they're treating, Hindu people in Pakistan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You see all this, and you have to know, you have to feel that this is humiliating, at least humiliating. Let's start there. You got to at least feel like this is disgusting. I am horrified by this. There was an imam, a gay imam in South Africa, and he was killed. And when he was killed, all the Muslims all over social media were like, good. There should be no such thing as a gay imam. Gay people should all be killed, blah, blah, blah. That's the overwhelming sense you got from the Muslim community, right? When an Israeli speaks too strongly, hatefully, aggressively, if an Israeli says something like, that's the way Arabs are, they're just animals. Watch how that person gets just absolutely buried under messages from other Israeli people and other Jewish people all over the world.
As they should.
Admonishing this guy, like, how dare you? That's disgusting. Delete this, et cetera, shaming him. That is what I wish the Muslim community would do. Shame your people who are doing shameful things. Instead, when they are doing shameful things, they are uplifted. They are celebrated. Those are the ones that people look up to. It is the absolute opposite is happening in the Muslim community, and it's disgusting. And that's where it needs to end. And so when I say get 1% more brave, I mean, at least speak up against a gay imam being killed. You know what I mean? Like, do that. Do the smallest little
bare
thing.
minimum, yeah.
Bare minimum. Click like on a comment where somebody is saying this man shouldn't have been killed. Like, at least do that. And, dip your toe into that water and then start wading into it and get more and more and more brave. And when you get brave enough, join us at the Clarity Coalition, where we are engaged in this work on a global level, where it's exactly that. We are trying to, from within, grassroots, from within the Muslim communities, try to get more and more Muslims to be more and more brave, to speak out against the Islamists that are toxic, as you mentioned, to Muslims first and foremost. They will hurt you first before they're even able to reach a Jew or a Christian or a Hindu or any other non-Muslim. So you're fighting for yourself.
I want to be involved in this. I want to, whatever I can do to be involved. I would love to work with you and work with your team. That would be amazing.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Absolutely. So anybody who's listening, go to claritycoalition.org, click on join us. And yeah, you and I are going to talk after
I'll
this.
put that link in the show notes for everyone watching. Before we sign off, there one more topic I want to discuss. Before I get to this topic, please, please, please go to the Clarity Coalition. Link is in the description. Get Yasmine's book, Unveiled. It's extraordinary. You are just incredible. We'll put the link to that in the description as well. Speaking about strength and bravery and all of these, the things we just ended on, you are embarking on a new path that you and I briefly spoke about before. And you were saying that you're going to be getting involved in strength training,
Hmm.
which is wonderful. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been on this self, this journey of healing that has really been focused on, emotional healing, inner child work, and a lot of things that I really hadn't focused on. You read my book, you know how much I was dealing with, and I just moved forward with doing all of the pragmatic things. I got the degrees, I got the jobs, I got the house, the family, the cars, and I kept thinking like, I'm okay, I'm good now. I did the things, right? And I was completely unaware of how I was entirely unhealed internally. And so I had to go on I'm still on it and I will be on it for the rest of my life because there's no end date to this. But I am on this now process of healing myself, reparenting myself, and learning how to love myself, which was, it's all very new. And now that I feel like I'm strong enough here in like mentally, internally, I feel like it's finally time for the first time in my life to focus on my physical healing, which, as you know from my book, as being a Muslim girl, you're not allowed to ride a bike, you're not allowed to go swimming. I wasn't allowed to do PE in school, even though it was like required to graduate. They never let girls move at all. And the whole fear was it's going to break your hymen and you're not going to be a virgin. And so all of that sort of fear of working out, fear of sports, fear of anything, even riding a bike. And so now at my ripe old age of 51, I'm going to pick up dumbbells and like figure
Yes.
out how to, get this body in physical health. And it's really important now because I'm getting up there in the years, and it's only going to get worse if I don't start to focus right now. So I'm really proud of myself that I've gotten this far in my healing journey internally, and now it's for the external healing journey to begin, which it's all one. You know what I mean?
It's
It's all
connected.
connected for sure.
I'm proud of you. I'm
Thank you.
excited for you. Um, are you nervous to begin strength training?
I'm excited about it, actually.
Good.
It's the kind of thing that, how it's always at the back of your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, not your mind, but regular people's minds. For you, I know for you, it's different, it's front and center. But for other people, it's like, it's the thing that but you got to go to work and the kids and then the soccer practice and then the this and then the that. So there's always things that take, precedence. But my girls are older now, and I get to focus on myself. And so it feels like a gift. It feels like I'm privileged to get to this point in my life where I get to focus on myself unapologetically. And yeah, I could finally feel, physically healthy, physically strong in my body in a way that I've never felt before. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm very excited for you. And as I said, if you have any questions, I'm always here for you. One day, maybe after a little bit of time strength training, we'll bring you back and we
Yeah,
can get a workout in and talk about your journey in strength
I'd
training. I
love
would
that.
love to keep up with you on that front. Yasmine, is there any messages that you would like to leave to anyone listening right now? Any final words you want to leave people with?
Yeah, I would say that little 1% braver quip that I gave for Muslims, I'd like to share that with everybody. I always look at Iranian women.
Oh my gosh, the
Yeah,
bravest in the world.
absolutely. And if we can look at Iranian women in the streets burning their hijabs as the IRGC are standing there with guns pointed at them, that level of bravery is superhuman.
Yes.
I'm not asking people to go that far. I'm asking them to just do little steps. You know what I mean? It's just like little tiny specks of bravery added to your life. For those of you in America, you're living in the freest country in the world. It would be an absolute tragedy. It is an absolute tragedy that people in America are afraid to speak their mind. It is just so sad to see that there's people that are afraid to like lose their jobs, lose their friends, lose their family, lose their this, lose their that, over speaking their opinion. And the only way that we can break that is if we just keep speaking. If you allow yourself to be silenced, then you're allowing their tactics to work. Then they are winning. So do not silence yourself. And I'm not saying jump out there and, write the blog post under your real name or whatever it is. I'm saying like little steps, little by little, get yourself educated on topics before you speak on them, and speak with conviction and confidence when you're ready to speak.
Can people reach out to you and ask you questions if they aren't sure? Like, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, yasminmohammed.com, and you mentioned my podcast, the Yasmin Mohammed Podcast, and I have a community there.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And so not only is the community online, but also in my podcast, when I interview somebody, there's always a half an hour after that where anybody in the community can ask the guest questions, get
Amazing.
involved. Yeah. So it's always an open conversation. And of course, if you join Clarity, there's many conversations there that we can get involved in. So yeah, there's lots of people out there doing this work. But the problem is we are all over the globe. We're all very scared. We all feel very alone. And so that's why we wanted to found Clarity, was so that people who were too afraid, too nervous to be brave enough in their work can now feel like, okay, we have a support system around us. We could be braver. So it's all about that. It's all about pushing back against propaganda machines and the lies that you're seeing around you, the things that don't make any sense, yet everybody keeps espousing it. We have to do our due diligence. We have to be the voice. There's that old Buddhist adage of a forest of 1,000 trees, starts with the tiniest seeds. We are the tiniest seeds, and we have to just keep spreading our voice and being brave.
I love that. Yasmine, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please, number one, make sure you follow Yasmine. Please get her book, and all of her links will be in the show notes. Please follow her, reach out to her. Like she said, be brave, stand up for what's right. If you have any questions, let her know, let me know. Please give the podcast a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Thumbs up on YouTube. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon.